Hey guys, welcome back to the Goodfellow Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Barone. Thanks for tuning in. If you like us, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. So this way, listen, I can bring some more stories to you, some more content, and maybe some more guests, which I'm about to announce in another minute. Anyways, don't forget about the Patreon channel too, where I have a lot of movie reviews that people have just been with all the letters and everything, emails are asking to do some movie reviews. So I got a lot of that in our Patreon channel and some other good stuff that you're probably going to like as well. Then we also got our shop, which is all Goodfellow memorabilia like T-shirts, cups, hats, and stuff like that. Check it out, see if you like it, and then we're going to be running some promotions down the road with that as well. We also have another segment, Ask Joe. So in other words, you could ask me about what I did in the life, how I got started, and even my personal life. If I'm able to answer some things, I definitely will. So, anyways, my guest today too is a man who had a similar. I mean, our lives were parallel in so many different ways. I had a really great interview with him, a lot of fun with him, and his name is Anthony Ruggiano. Please welcome him to the show. He's a great guy. I know you're gonna like it. See you soon. Hey guys, welcome to the Goodfellow Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Barone, and with me today, I got a really special guest, someone I'm glad to finally meet for the first time. I got Anthony Ruggiano Jr. here, and we have a lot in common. He's just a few years older than me, but we are so close in things, and I'm going to explain as the show goes on. Anthony, thank you for coming on. It's a real pleasure. Can you introduce yourself to the fans and let them know a little bit about you? Because I know a lot, but you let them know.
Yeah, well, my name's Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I'm the son of Anthony Fat Andy Ruggiano, who was, made member of the Gambino family. So I basically grew up in the mob. It's good to be on your show. I see a lot of interviews. I saw the one with my cousin Gene that you just did. Yeah. So I'm just glad to be here, and I've been in this life a long time.
Exactly. And your background, believe it or not, and just so before, I wanted you to see my face for our first meeting because I like you to look at my eyes, but I can't really see that good, so I'm going to put the glasses on.
All right.
Everybody makes fun. They think I got these glasses from the gas station, but these are Revo glasses. I spent $100 on them. I spent $250 trying to get them made prescription.
Prescription,
yeah. So let me put them on. There you go. You look good, brother.
Thank you.
So both of us, I want everybody to know, both of us grew up in the life. And back when Anthony and I were younger, the life was completely different. You told a story. I don't know what show it was that I saw you on, but you told a story, and I identified with it right away. How when you used to go away and you did something with these guys, whether it was a little bit, a lot of it, whatever it may be, it was like they took care of you. They looked out for you. They said, hey, don't worry about nothing. We got you. And, even when you went to prison, you were like welcomed, like as if, hey, how you doing? You weren't alone. Now, today's is completely different because there was your generation. Then it was like more like kind of like trickling down towards mine. And then there was your cousin Gene's too. That was like the last tail end of maybe what could have still been. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there was something you said that I liked a lot. And I'm going to tell you right now, just meeting you for the first time and hearing your stories. This is, if your father was still alive, I believe you would still be in prison. And I believe that. And I'm going to tell you why I believe it. Because if my father wasn't killed and he was still alive, I would have still been in prison back then too. How many years it would have been? That's it. Not saying that we love prison and it was great and all of this stuff, but we did what we had to do. And so I want to tell you 100% I believe what you said about that. So with that, if you want to say anything, along those lines, it's up to you.
Yeah. Well, I know you. I mean, listen, if my father was alive, first of all, I would have never cooperated. Not in a million years. I would have never, ever cooperated. And, at least I would have had a fighting chance. If he was alive, the way it was when it happened, I was getting ready to get thrown under the bus because, like you said, it's a new generation out there. But I know in my heart that if he was alive, I would have never cooperated. Even if Tony Lee was alive, his partner, I would have never cooperated. I could have never gave either one of them up, never in a million years. And anybody that really knows me knows that would be real. That's the truth. But unfortunately, he was dead. And when I was in prison and he died, as a matter of fact, March 19th next week is the anniversary of his death. In
Wow.
1999, after he died, they took everything from me.
Yep.
Basically everything. I mean, they even sent for a guy that was giving my wife money to pay my son's health insurance. They even took that, and when I went to the yard after I had the phone call and I found out what was going on, and I went to the yard, the wise guys in the yard couldn't believe that Pete Gotti was letting that happen.
Right.
So
Right.
it was just, so when I got out, it was a different world.
You see, and that's what I want to tell everybody too. So you was really with the Gambino family. My father was a soldier in the Genovese family. And I guess I had papers with them, but then I gravitated towards the Bonanno family because, you know how things happen out there in the world. You know what I'm saying? And matter of fact, though, my captain, Dominick Cicale, you probably heard of him from Mafia Roundtable.
Yeah, I know Dominic. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, today's his birthday, so I want to wish my
Is
brother
it?
a very I want to wish him a very happy birthday.
Right.
But he basically, I love the guy still to this day. He was a real, like, how, like, you see how you mentioned those people, the guy Lee and all of that.
Yeah.
That's the way I was with Dominic too. He was that close to me.
Mm-hmm.
But even though we're from different crews, we always still can come together, help each other out. Like he came on my show. I appreciate that. But the life is completely different. And I do believe you even after just meeting you, because when you said that, I think you said that on a couple of different interviews.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I said, see, he's just like me, except, just a couple of ages, a couple of years difference. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I want everybody to realize, especially when I was talking to Gene too, all that stuff that looks good or sounds good, they don't really realize what you have to do. Look, I was like you. I had no skill. I didn't know anything.
Right.
The best thing I was going to be was a postman. I've said that on many of my shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's okay, because I had two uncles and a cousin who were postmen, so it would have looked like I went to a family business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my skill was with a gun, my hands. I would do whatever I needed to be done, and that's it. I mean, other than that,
Yeah. Listen, I fall into the same category. Listen, I left school at 16. I went to work for my father at 16. My first job was in a blackjack game. My second job was in a dice game. Then I started writing numbers. But that's all gone. That culture is gone. And I started selling swag and I started getting arrested. And that's the only skill I got. My father told me as long as you go like this, you'll always be all right. That was his mentality. That's what he used to tell me. He used to joke. He used to go, as long as you go like this, you'll always be all right. Never let anybody know you're broke. Always live like you got a ton of money, whether you have it or not. Going to jail is all part of the job. So now,
that's right.
When I became an adult, I mean, that's all I knew. I started going to jail when I was 24 years old in 1978. I went to jail and then I went to jail again in the 90s. In 91, I got out in 92. Then I got pinched again in 95 and I went away again. So when I got out in 04, I didn't know nothing. I was so behind when I got out. So when I was in, the internet took off. Right. When I got out, my daughter told me I needed to get a username and an email. I didn't even know what the fuck she was talking about. What's a username? She goes, you got to get a username. You got to get an email. What? Because everybody has one. I didn't even know what she was talking about. Well, I was in a halfway house in Bushwick, and I had to take the train to go to the job I had. And there was a guy in front of me, and he was going like this, and he was having a conversation, but he had a nice overcoat on. I go, what is this guy talking to himself? So I sped up like to catch up to him, and he had earplugs in his ear, and he was having a conversation. I thought the guy was talking to himself. And then when I got pinched, when I got arrested in 05 for the murder, nobody was doing nothing. I needed $25,000 for a lawyer. I couldn't even raise it. I couldn't raise. Nobody. My father died. Unfortunately, my father died broke. He came out of jail broke. He died broke. Nobody believed me because of the way he lived.
Right.
They said, "Oh, it's impossible. Your father died broke." No, my father died broke. But maybe that was just an excuse for them not to help me. Then a lawyer that I had helping me told me, you need to call the government. These people are going to throw you under the bus. My co-defendant, Dominic, Skinny Dom, had a travel agent guy that was going to give him paperwork saying that he was in Florida for the time of the murder And I told him, what about me? He goes, I can't get more paperwork. You're on your own.
Wow.
I co-defended.
Wow.
You know, and the hardest thing I ever did was make that call. And I never even made the call. If
Your wife did, right?
If you heard
Yeah.
a year, Joe, it took me a year to make
Wow.
that call. I would pick up the phone, hang it up. And every time I picked up the phone, I saw my father's face. Every time I picked up the phone and I hung it up. And then I gave the card to my wife and told her to call. When she went to work, she called.
Right.
But then talking about no skills, now after I was done testifying and everything, now what do? I didn't know how to do anything. My father never taught me how to fix anything. I don't even know how to fix a flat. I had a job. I was living in Michigan, and a friend of mine, because I was bored, he gave me a job. So on the first day of the job, they gave me a toolbox. I called up my son. I go, you'll never guess what they gave me. They just gave me a toolbox. He started laughing. He goes, what are you going to do with that? You know, but thank God my life experience, and then out of the clear, maybe divine intervention or whatever, I get a call one day, and a guy offers me a job, and it tells me he wants to make me a counselor in a treatment center.
Wow.
This is when I'm 60 years old.
Right.
And I went back to school, and I became a counselor in a treatment center. So my life experience actually was my education.
Wow. You see, this is what it is. Just so, and I think you already noticed, you probably could agree with me. Most wise guys I know, they're almost all broke anyways. When I got the job, I got the job at the Javits Center, Jacob Javits Center in New York.
Yeah, all them Genovese guys had the jobs there.
Yeah, Bonnie, I don't know if you heard of Bonnie Bonanno. So
yeah, of course.
So he told my father, "What's the kid doing?" My father said, "What do you think he's doing? Nothing." He says, "All right, send them down there." Ralphie Coppola was still alive. He was my boss then, and I got the job. I walked over there. They said, "Where's your tool belt?" I said, "Nobody told me how to get one. I didn't know. I thought we were going to sit around, have coffee, smoke the Nobly. I didn't know."
Of course,
He said, "No, he said, this is a real thing here." I said, "Okay." So I had to walk up the street. I must have spent $30 on a hammer and just to get all the tools. I didn't have no tools in the shed either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't even go that far. Yeah. I mean, when I was 16, I had a choice. You know, when my father sat me down when I was 16, when I got suspended from school, it was like yesterday. I sat at the table with my uncle Frank, my father's older brother, and my father and me. And my father said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go to work." And he goes, "Oh, he wanted to get me in the Cement Masons Union." This was 1969.
Wow.
He said, all right, I'll get you in. No, he wanted to put me in the brick. Back then, bricklaying was big. He goes, "I'm going to get you in the Bricklayers Union." I said, "I don't want to lay brick."
Yeah.
And he goes,
right.
I said, "I don't want to lay brick." He goes, "What do you?" I said, "I want to go to work for you." Because now I knew he was a wise guy. Now I was getting treated special in the neighborhood. I liked it. I was Fat Andy's son. You know, I loved it. You know, I was getting treated special. There was a couple of hours rolling in, and he put me to work. I mean, he didn't really want to do it. He never had a father. His father died when he was 6 years old. My grandfather died. And he used to tell me that. He goes, "You don't know what it is to grow up without a father." And he didn't know how to reprimand me or my brother or my sister. He was a gangster in the street and a killer, but at home, he was a teddy bear. He didn't know how to reprimand. My mother used to beat the shit out of us. My father, in my house, it was opposite. It wasn't wait till your father got home. It was wait till your mother got home. It was,
don't laugh. That's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Because my mother beat me with a strap all the time because she said she was tired. She said she was tired of hitting me with the hands. So I asked my father later on in life. I said, "Dad, how come you never hit me?" He says, "I'm afraid I might kill you." That's what he told me.
That's exactly what my father used to tell me. He used to grab me sometimes like this, and he goes, "If I ever start at you, I'm going to kill you." Yeah. And then he used to put me down. That was the extent of it, you know. And then, you know, we had drug problems, me and my sister and my brother, unfortunately, passed away. And I had children, you know, and I wanted to know, like, I don't blame my parents. They played a part in my becoming what I became. I mean, you know, and I went up to visit him when he was in a joint before I went away. And I go, "Listen, I got to ask you a question, and I don't mean to disrespect you, and I don't want you to feel bad, but I got to ask you a serious question." He goes, "Yeah, what is it?" I said, "You have 3 children. All 3 of us had drug problems. Do you think you played a part in that?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, I did." And I was surprised.
Really?
I go, really?
Wow.
What did you do? He goes, I stopped paying attention.
Wow.
Yeah, he stopped
Wow,
paying attention because he
that's pretty
was
big of him.
tied up in his own, with the mob being Fat Andy.
Yeah.
And he said, I stopped paying attention. And
Well-
and that, and I understood that. It made sense to me.
Well, Anthony, you know that life. How it's so hard to just run in that life if you were single. Now,
Yeah.
trying to have a family, it's
Yeah.
almost, and I said one time on one of my other shows, because they always say that life's supposed to come before your real family,
Yeah.
before your other family, right? Okay. I get that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But if you know my mother's sick, dying, why would you want to call me anyway? You know what I'm saying? If
Yeah.
you have any respect
Yeah.
for me, why would you
Yeah.
want to call me in the first place? Why don't you?
Yeah.
You got 20, 30 other guys you can call. Do you really
Mhm.
need my skills on this particular, whatever you might call me for?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my point. Like, in other words, you don't need to test me. I passed the test, especially if I had to whack somebody or whatever I had to do. I passed the test.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Listen, I have a funny story about that.
Go ahead.
When my father first got straightened out, Albert Anastasia was the boss.
Right.
And on Mother's Day, Albert Anastasia was having a family party, not for his mother, I think for one of his daughters or something. And my father had to go there. He was one of the guys that had to be there. And he didn't see my grandmother on Mother's Day. My grandmother, till the day she died, she used to throw that in his face. You didn't show up that Mother's Day because he had to go to Albert. He had to go to wherever he had to go that day.
But the way we grew up, Anthony, if you didn't call your mother once a day, you got in trouble. Why didn't you call me? What happened? That's the way we grew up. Am I right? Am I making this up?
Hey, my
you know
father
what I mean?
was the same way. When he was in jail, one Father's Day, I didn't send him a Father's Day card. My God, I heard it forever. Why didn't you didn't send me a Father's Day card? Once. I missed one Father's Day card. Yeah.
Listen, you and I both know you could do everything right, and that one thing you don't do, they never forget.
Forget it. Yeah, but he but like I said, if he was alive when I got pinched in 2004, if he was still alive, my life, I may have got life. Who knows? I feel I would have never cooperated. That's a given. But even if I would have beat that murder case, eventually I was going to go to jail because I was proposed at the time. I was just waiting. I just had a meeting with Lenny DiMaria. Lenny, he was a captain in the Gambino film. I had a meeting with him and he told me, okay, your name went around. Everything's done. We're just waiting to have the ceremony, but if you have to go see somebody, you don't need any representation. Everybody knows you're going to get straightened out. It's just a matter of when the ceremony is, but it's all done. It's all done. You're going to be with us. Nikki Carrazza put your name in. I'm going to be your captain and all that bullshit.
I heard of Nikki too. Yeah.
Yeah. A week later, I got pinched for the murder. A week later, I'm sitting on a bench and waiting for my son to come home. And I got my eyes. Next thing I know, I don't move. I open up my eyes. There's a gun in my nose. Wow. And I got lifted up off the bench and handcuffed in Lindenwood, Howard Beach. And I got put under house arrest and all that bullshit. But after that, if I didn't cooperate and I would have beat that case, Nikki caught a case after that. There was guys that I was associated with that all caught cases and went to jail. I would have been thrown into one of them cases. And with my guidelines, I was, how the feds work, there's guidelines. Yep. I was in category 6. I was off the chart.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Yep, that's crazy. And that story about what was he, your sister's boyfriend or your sister's husband or whatever? Yeah. But in all actuality, why would that guy do something like that? That's not even using your head.
Listen, he was a bad kid. He was dangerous. He was around. He knew the deal. He was mobbed up his whole life. He went away for armored car robberies. He had his partner, Peter Cicale. They were dangerous. And he had a pattern of always going out with wise guys' daughters or nieces. For some reason, he might have thought that was going to make maybe a shield. Like he went out, he went out with, when my sister started dating him, Danny Marino, who was a captain in the Gambino family, came to see us and told us, tell your sister to stay away from this guy. He's no good. And his niece used to come by my house and yell at him in front of my mother's house. And I told my sister to stay away from me, and he didn't. I think at the end of the day, I think he underestimated us. And his own friends told him, don't go out with Andy's daughter. Don't go out with Andy's daughter. And he did it anyway. And I think between the drugs and the alcohol and him underestimating us, and he did something that he paid the price for, unfortunately.
Well, but there are certain things you don't do. I mean, let's face it, we know that. I wouldn't do anything. Listen, I have a lot of guys I don't even like out there. I still would never bother their parents or anything like that. Or you don't need to do that kind of shit.
Of course not. Of course not. But unfortunately, it happens, and it happened, the result is, he disappeared, and who suffered? My sister suffers, my niece suffers, and all my mentality at the time was, it didn't even faze me.
Yeah, of course not.
Growing up in that life, it didn't even faze me. Like that night, I actually went with his father to go look for him.
Right.
I mean, that's the frame of mind I was in. When I look back, like that's the person I became. That's the mob. When a father could tell a son to go commit a murder, it's a crazy lifestyle. I mean, I see my son now. I could never.
No, and that's the thing I said. And even us at our age, it was hard to tell my father I loved him. And. Like today's everybody's like, oh, they tell the kids they love them a lot. The kids tell them back. But it was actually a little hard for me even to tell my father I loved him, because it was just that, like, you almost felt like you're not supposed to say that as a man. But that's a crock of shit, if you ask me. You know what I mean?
I had it. My father used to kiss me on the lips. He used to tell me, my son, he used to call me to don't worry about it, kid. I said, don't worry about it. He used to tell me when he was on the lamb. Tony used to give me, when he was on the limb, I would have to bring him like 5,000, and they would be like 4,500, and he would go, "Where's the? Don't worry about it." I used to tell him. He used to tell me, "Don't worry about it, kid. Don't worry about it." I used to tell him, "Don't worry." That was my nickname. When I used to walk in the room, he used to go, "Here he is. Don't worry about it, kid."
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I like that. Yeah. But don't forget, though, these guys had a lot of humor about them, though, didn't they?
Oh yeah, of course. My father had great one-liners. Great. Oh, he was the best. But and funny, but sometimes like abusive. Like there was this really ugly guy that used to hang out with us. He passed away now. His name was Magua. That was his nickname. And my father used to tease him and ask him how much he charged to haunt houses. And I said, "Why do you tell that?" And the guy used to laugh. He goes, he don't care. He don't care. He used to ask him, "Hey, Magua, how much you charge to haunt houses?"
Well, here, wait. I'm in the elevator. I'm out with this girl, and her mother comes out with us. She's got a guy, a knockaround guy that she was hanging around with, right? A really nice guy. So we got all dressed up to go down to the city. It was my girlfriend's birthday or her mother's birthday, whatever it was at the time. Now we get into we're in the elevator, and we're just being quiet. We went out to eat already, so we're a little feeling good with the champagne and everything. Well, these two ugly girls got on the elevator with us. Nobody said nothing, but I know we're all thinking of, you know what I mean? Like, look at these monsters, these oicules, All of a sudden, the girl's mother's boyfriend says, "Was there an escape from the zoo that we didn't hear about?" So, like, this is the kind of shit that they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was funny, but people aren't going to say nothing to him. They were a little nervous around him too. But they did. Tony, his partner was the complete opposite. His partner used to yell and scream. His partner, when I started driving around, so after I had a cocaine issue. It's out there. So after I got clean and I got out of treatment and everything, I started driving Tony around, and I knew he used to like to yell. He was a yeller, so I used to just yes him to death. So one night I'm driving. We're in Brooklyn, and we ate in this Chinese restaurant called Marjan. I don't know if you ever ate in it. And and we come out and we're driving back to Ozone Park, and I'm just yesing him to death. And he looks at me and goes, "At least your father used to tell me to go fuck myself once in a while. What's wrong with you? All you do is yes me to death." I go, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna argue with you and let you start screaming at me. What do you think? I'm an idiot?"
He knew what you were doing. But I'm glad that you brought that up though too, because a lot of times, when you had that bad habit,
Yeah.
a guy who's you know, they usually chase them. They don't usually keep them around. So actually they must have really liked you,
Yeah.
or your
I,
father, whatever it must have been.
yeah.
You know, that's pretty
You
good.
know, yeah, you know why too? Because when I started in the early 70s, everybody was blowing coke.
Yeah,
Everybody.
no, yeah, that was the
And
big
a
thing.
lot of them guys later on got straightened out that I was blowing coke
Wow.
with in the hippo. So it wasn't like, you know, I was the only one doing it. You know, and now these guys became captains and wise guys. They were in the store with me, you know what I mean? In the hippo and Studio 54 and all these clubs, you know, all these discos. They were right next to me. And for some reason, John Gotti always liked me. I always had a great relationship with the guy. There was just something about him and I. He always looked out for me, always. And being Fat Andy's son definitely helped me. And I was good at that life. We were good at that. I knew that life. I was good at what I did. And then I got sidetracked for a few years. Then when I went into treatment, I got out of treatment on a Wednesday. That Saturday, I went to the Bergen Hut Fish Club.
Right. John's
and he
place.
took me outside. Now he's the boss he's the boss.
Right.
And he takes me outside and he tells me, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." He goes, just like I swear, he says to me, "Is there anything I could do for you? I don't want you to get stressed out." He told me.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I don't have a car. I'm trying to get a car." He goes, "You're trying to get a car?" And he went into his office, he picked up the phone and he told me, "Go to 84th Street in Atlantic Avenue. There's a car lot there. And the guy's waiting for you." Tony Lee took me there. I walked in the thing. The guy's name was Anthony too. I said, "You Anthony?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "John sent me." He said, "Take whatever car you want."
Right. Oh wow, that's nice.
You know, the guy and then I went back to the Bergen Hut Fish Club and he gave me $2,000. He goes, "Here's $2,000. I want you to come here every Saturday with $100." He said, "And don't disappoint me." I said, "No problem." I went back 1 week. I gave him 100. I went back the next week. I gave him 100. The third week I went back. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Now I look good. I had nice clothes. You know, I was looking healthy. I had a nice suit on. You know, I was back in the swing of things. You know, I was feeling good." And he goes to me, "Keep the rest for a gift." So, you know, this was one of those things, you know. So yeah, a lot of guys get chased, a lot of guys get hurt, but I in that sense, I was lucky.
And a lot of guys don't even tell you they do it. They did it on the side. Nobody told anybody. Some guys were still selling it on the side, and they would come with envelopes. Nobody asked questions, and you know, these. As long as you gave them an envelope, they didn't care, and then you know they were quiet. Then all of a sudden something happens to you, and the guy says, "What you were? He was around you. You didn't know? Oh, I thought he was doing something else." You know, they play dumb. You know.
Yeah, but you see, I'm a little older than you, so you know I got 11 years on you. So when I start in the early 70s, when we were going out, you know, like I said earlier, everybody was partying, and you know, unfortunately, maybe the way I was wired, I winded up having an issue with it. You know, not everybody did, but I did. But but listen, I put it away. I haven't done it in 36 years, and you know, and then you know, everything worked out good.
Good for you. So, your life, I mean, like after all of this stuff, I mean, did you feel ever like you were threatened with anything, or did anybody want to bother you? Did you hear rumors in the street that people are looking for you or anything like that? Or
after I cooperated?
Yeah.
You know, I was never scared or worried. I mean, I didn't disrespect them. I didn't put it in their face. I didn't go in the neighborhood. I mean, you know, I was careful. I think when I started cooperating, I think the violence was over. I think because there's too many people cooperating, too many CIs, too much surveillance, and the guys that were involved were all becoming old. And there was a different client. There was no more Fat Andys. There was no more Joes. There was no more Dominicks. There was no more Sammy the Bulls out there. Who are they going to send? These kids today, what are they going to put me on? Put it on Instagram? Who are they going to send?
Exactly. You know? Yeah, because you actually took this. You actually had to go to like 6 different trials or something like that.
I testified at 6 trials. I testified at 6 trials.
That must have been
hard. I was never
scared.
Like I mean, of course, it's. You know, there's a death sentence on you if you cooperate. I mean, that goes back to the beginning. But is it going to get carried out? I don't think today at all. I don't think. Matter of fact, from what I hear from people that are still out there, the rule is that you're not even allowed to kill anybody anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, and believe me, I talk to guys out there.
Okay. Yeah, I still have my connections, because just in case I always keep my ear to the ground.
Yeah.
But
Me too.
Even Gene said the same thing too. He says, without any violence in this life, you really got nothing. And we both agreed on that one. And he says, and he's right. I mean, so what do you got? I mean, you just like a regular businessman without the title. You know what I mean?
That's it. Yeah. And listen, in 1990, after I got sentenced in Florida, and I got to 10 years, I had to finish my New York State bid, because that's what I was doing, a state bid for bookmaking, and the feds took me to Miami. Now I had to go back to the state to finish my state time, and then they were going to with a federal detainer. Right. In 1998, I'm in Elmira State Penitentiary. It was the last time I saw my father alive. He came to visit me, and we're in the visiting room, and he was very friendly with Joey Molina and the Philadelphia crew. They befriended each other in Allenwood. They became very good friends. And there was this guy, Billy, that was around Joey, that was my father's cellmate, who had a big produce business, multi-million-dollar produce business in Philly. So I'm in the visit, and my father goes, I'm opening up a big vegetable and fruit business. It's going to be for you when you get out.
Wow, that's nice.
I was taken aback. But what are you talking about? What are you talking about? We're going to become the fruit man, And he looked at me and he goes, yeah. He goes, you know why? I go, why? He goes, because our life is all over. He said, we had two things going for us. He goes, and they're both gone. He says, number one is everybody feared us and nobody cooperated. He goes, and none of that is going on anymore. He said, it's over.
That's right.
And he was right.
He's right. Smart. He was really. So I got to say, your father sounds like he knew what he was talking about. He was smart.
Yeah, he did.
Very smart. You see, that's a guy who actually knew the deal. You know what I mean? Like you said, the way he was brought up and everything like that. Now, one question: do you really think you're not going to be buried with your father? You really think he's going to be mad at you?
If God forbid I die today, I'm not going to get buried with him. I already told my kids. I already told my two kids they have the deed to my grandparents' grave, and I told them if anything happens to me, put me in with my grandparents. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, he was my life, my own man. I mean, as bad, as crazy as it was, and and the things we did, and like I said, if he was alive, my life would have been totally different. My kids' lives would have been totally different. And
but Anthony, that's all we knew.
I don't think I don't think he. I'll tell you something that I never told nobody.
Thank you.
When he was away in Allenwood, I'm not going to say their names, but a wise guy's son flipped. Well, he was away in Allenwood, and the guy was in Allenwood with him, and we're on the visit, and the guy's on the visit, and he looked at him, and he looked at me, he goes, you see him? He goes, I can't believe he even comes out of his cell. If you did that, I'd fucking hang myself, he told me.
Oh, he said that. Wow. Okay.
So
now I see where you're coming from.
And that sticks with me. That's why it took me so long to make that decision, because of those conversations and how I knew he felt about people that cooperated. But to me, his life was over. That life was over. The life he knew didn't exist anymore.
No.
It was it was a whole new ball game with all different players. That life didn't exist no more. But it still took me a year. I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times I picked up the phone and hung it up, and picked up the phone and hung it up.
Yeah. I believe you. Listen. I thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate that. And you don't laugh. I was doing my time too. My father was he was actually on the lam. So I just thought he was on the lam, and one day I'll get out, I'll see him again, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And then I found then he died. I didn't know that they said he was murdered. I don't know if that was even true or not to this day. I'm still going to be, we're going to be doing a special show. Hopefully Dominic and I are going to put something together on that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to convince him to find out if that was even true. But it took me, I was doing my time just like you were doing. But then I got pulled into the room. The FBI, the agents came to get me. I was like, what the heck is going on here? My attorney's sitting there. I didn't know. And he said, listen, Joe, listen to them. He says, what do you got to do? You got nothing else going on, right? He says, sit here and see what they got to say. And then once I heard that, something in my head went off, and that was it. And I didn't jump on the bandwagon right there, but then I thought about it like you did. So that's another similar story I thought we had in common.
I mean, it's crazy because that happened. Listen, when my father died, I'm in Schuylkill. My father dies. My father dies about a month later. Now the visiting room, I think it was on a Wednesday. The visiting room was closed on a Wednesday, I believe a Tuesday and a Wednesday. Well, anyway, it was the day the visiting room was closed to the public. I get called for a visit. I go, who's coming to see me? So now I think maybe it's a lawyer, because I had some stuff going on. I thought maybe it was a lawyer. I go in the visiting. They bring me to the visiting room. It's a U.S. attorney and 2 FBI agents.
Wow.
Right? And they sit me in a room, and they got a recorder on the table, a cassette player on the table. And I sit down. I'm sitting down, and they're sitting across. And I go, what do you want? What he's doing here?
Right.
I said, what do you want to get me killed? That people think I'm talking to you? You know what I mean?
Right.
So he says to me, no. He goes, we want you to hear something. And he presses the button, and it's Tony Pep, a wise guy, Anthony Trent DaCosta, and another wise guy, and this guy, Freddie.
Okay.
And they're talking about how they're going to whack up everything for my father that my father had in Florida, and how now Freddie, because Freddie was with my father, and at one point, Tony Pep asked my father to release him to him, and he refused. My father goes, I'm not releasing nobody to nobody. You know what I mean? You know, that's how he was. And Tony Pep got a resentment. Now the tape is they're talking bad now about my old man. He's dead, and they were going to cut this up, and we're going to whack that up, and they're cutting up the pie. And he hits the button. He goes, you want to walk out with us?
Wow.
And I said, no. Yeah. He said, just like that. He goes, come on, we'll walk you right out the door. I said, don't do me no favors, because I wasn't ready yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I went back, and I went back in right away. I went right to the phone, and I called up Joseph Carrazza, Jojo Carrazza's son, the attorney. Jojo was the consigliere of the Gambino family. I called him up, and I told him they just came to visit me. Make sure you tell your uncle I chased him out of the visiting room. Yeah. But that's what they did. So, and they played the tape of how they were whacking up already what my father had, because that led to my deciding what I was going to do. The day my father died, I called up this kid Carl that was with us, and I called him up. This is a couple of hours after my father died. I called him up, and he goes, "You're never going to guess what's going on." I said, "What?" He goes, "They already started sending for guys. They just sent for me to go to Cafe Liberty." My father's body was still in Jamaica Hospital in the refrigerator. He wasn't even at the funeral party yet. They were sending for guys, telling them to bring Andy's money to them.
Wow.
So now, are we supposed to spend our lives in prison for these guys?
And you're exactly right. This is what I don't understand. You're doing the right thing by keeping your mouth shut. You're doing the time, but why are you forgotten about? It's even look. I understand that nobody wants to go to funerals. They take pictures. I understand that. They usually they send the flowers. They always want to know who sent the biggest flowers and everything. But the rules, there are rules, and I get it. But at the same token, they're not right. They're not right.
And I know, and they know Fat Andy would have never done that.
No.
Or Tony Lee would have never done that.
Right.
Never in a million years would they have sent for guys when the guy's not even buried in the ground. Listen.
No.
When this guy John died around us, he died of leukemia around us. His wife in the attic found a cardboard box full of money.
Wow.
At the funeral, now he was with us. He worked in the number business with us, and she knew, the wife knew the deal. At the funeral parlor, she told Tony Lee, listen, I found a box of money up in the attic. Does it belong to you? Does it belong to the business?
Right.
Now, the guys around today would go, yeah, bring it to me.
Yeah, of course.
Tony told her, no, whatever's in there,
Wow.
keep it for you and your kids. That's the difference from generation to generation in the market. That was the difference. And that's the difference. And that tells the story.
I can't tell you how 100% right on the money you are. There's two stories I want to tell you. One, my father, I had a problem at one of these clubs out there where I was from Westchester. So the guy was paying every week. Back then in the 80s, it was $1,000 was a lot of money every weekend, you know?
Yeah.
So, well, I had a problem. So I told my father about it. My father says, okay. He goes to see the guys that are getting the money every week. And you know what they told my father? You and your son stay away from there for a while.
Yeah.
Okay? Like as if my father was nothing. So that was one thing I remember. Another thing that I remember, my father he put together his own scores here and there and did a little thing. He did a score for about $60,000. He goes to Barney and he sees Barney. They go into the room and he lays his $60,000 down. Barney says, what's this? My father says, I did something. He says, you did this on your own? He says, yeah, and this is all the money I made. I'm bringing it to you. He says, you did it on your own. That's all yours. I don't want nothing. Yeah. So that was still a tail end of what you understand, like what you're talking about, because they don't even think about that. Everything's about this, the money. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy how like our stories are so parallel because Barney's that generation. Listen, in this, my old man, he had a bar named Bulldogs. I remember this guy, Paulie G. They were stick-up guys. He used to do scores with Tommy DeSimone. This kid, he was a stone cold stick-up guy, hijacker. We're in the bar. He did a big score. He came to give my old man money. My father goes, what's this from? He goes, I just did a score yesterday. He goes, I don't want this. He goes, no, take it. He goes, no. He goes, well, Andy, what could I do for you? He goes, you could take me to Peter Luger's for dinner. And we all went to Peter Luger's for dinner.
Yeah, that was the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Today they would go, how much? This is all you're giving me?
Yeah, exactly. See, this is what I'm saying. This is the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, because even though there's some years difference, we got a parallel,
without a doubt.
And I can't listen. I know we're both, got the time on the clock and all of this stuff, but you know something, Anthony, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story. I wish you nothing but the best in the future. And if I ever need you again to come on, can I call you?
Anytime.
Anytime. And the same goes for me too. If you need something, you call me. I'll come on. This is what we do. We're still from the old school, even though the new school, whatever, but you and I are still from the old school.
Without a doubt. I'll promote you, and you can promote my Reformed Gangsters, my Patreon.
Yeah. Okay, let's do that. I will definitely do that. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. Listen, guys.
It was a pleasure.
All pleasure's all mine, believe me. Thanks so much for coming on. Good to see you. Nice meeting you finally, and we'll see you again.
Let's stay in touch, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Right. Thanks, Anthony.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.